Cheers! Vodka sodas at 11:20 in the morning.
Yeah.
Like usual.
We can.
All right.
First things first.
So,
Did you
yes.
write it down?
Yeah, I did. I
You
wrote it
typed
on.
it,
I
okay.
typed it in.
Okay.
So we wanted to start by talking about the practicum, and then we'll move into
Yes.
yes. So how did this week go?
Who taught first? Lauren,
Oh,
you did.
you did.
Yeah.
That was this. I loved your lesson this
Really?
week.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was,
I felt like it was informal in a way that was really enjoyable to them. Like they were able to kind of be creative with it.
Mhm.
And
yeah, I just felt like I wish I would have practiced, or thought more about, like, the order of the ones I was going to say, or, like, practice which ones I wanted to talk about, because I had all these facts and I didn't get to some good ones, and, or this thing that I wanted to do, for, like, some facts, they had a large number of people.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I had wanted them to divide, like, their school size into that to see how many schools
Would fit
The-
in there.
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And so I just wish I would have put in an order and thought about it, because while I was doing it, I was like, now let's do this fact. But
What
Oh,
I
yeah.
specifically loved, though, was getting to, like, especially with Alfonso,
Mhm.
getting to see how far he came. What explanation. Lorena brought in iPads, and we went on maps and looked at the hometowns of each of our students.
Mhm.
And Alfonso, who came from, I'm not going to pronounce it very well, Guerrero? Did I do
Yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Okay, good. Mexico, and he came, like, and that's really, like, really far. We found out it would, if his family drove straight from there to Bellingham, it would have taken 55 hours and
Yeah,
some
yeah,
odd minutes.
yeah.
Like, something crazy like that,
Mhm.
which is, I don't even know what that pans out to in days. But he,
probably over 2 days.
yeah. And then
Well,
he,
without stopping.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then he told us that he did it in a car with 4 other family members. So there were
Yeah.
5 people in a
Mhm.
car going.
Mhm.
Yeah, just
Or even
craziness.
just, when I was looking at the facts, I was kind of surprised that majority of immigrants come with visas through
Mhm.
planes.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking, like, it's just so interesting
That was
how people,
that blew my mind, that statistic.
like over, I
Mhm.
think it was over 50%, like 59 or something like that, close to
Mhm.
60%. And I was like, it just
I didn't
goes to
expect
show
that.
how ignorant, like,
Yes, the
Donald
stereotype.
Trump or, like, people
Mhm.
are like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was I really enjoyed your lesson.
I know it's good
Getting to
too
watch
because it kind of led to conversations and
Yes.
questions we could ask
Yes.
them. So it opened up kind of room for us to engage in their specific story.
And it was sort of almost that informal assessment in a way where we were able to be
Yeah.
like, what happened? Like, what was that like for you? It was the student or the interview that we have to do, the Solon.
Yeah.
Solon. It was kind of like that. We got to ask a lot of questions, and it was a good way to just really get to know. Like, you did a really good job in your lesson of allowing us to get to know each of our students. And even for, like, me, I was sitting next to Alfonso pretty much the whole time, and although we have a language barrier, like, I was still able to somewhat communicate through, like, pointing and like simple words, and it was really cool. It was really exciting. And then that kind of led us into thinking probably Alfonso understands a lot more than we give him credit for.
Yeah.
Because he definitely would acknowledge things that I would say, he just couldn't know exactly how to respond.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Brittany, you did your art lesson.
Yeah, so I did an art lesson, and we went through all of, like, the fundamentals of art, and it was cool because it was kind of like a GLAD strategy where they were following along and drawing and writing as I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So we did, like, line, form, shape, color, and they love art, and so I feel like that kind of was exciting to them. And then at the end, they got to make their own composition using some of those and relate it to the wordless book and find places in the book where those art aspects were illustrated, and it kind of connected them to the power of pictures and kind of had them engaged and excited about drawing and stuff. So it put more of a tangible, like, content based on
Mhm.
something that they already know and love, but it kind of directed it in a, this is how artists function or things that they think about.
I don't know if you know this too. I don't know if you noticed, but Alfonso caught on onto the single words, and
Okay,
he was
yeah.
able to point at pictures and use those single
Yeah,
words.
yeah.
So like that was it was pretty
Totally.
cool.
Yeah.
And I saw him writing the definitions and
Yes,
drawing.
he
I
did
was
the
like,
whole thing.
holy cow.
He was.
Yeah. I know.
You're so good with him.
Uh-huh.
Like you, despite that huge barrier.
There's a big
Yeah.
big language
Yeah.
barrier. I mean, I know very little Spanish, and I took it for 4 years, but that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I don't know much Spanish, but like getting to interact, because that's like the whole point of our major, and not to say that I love both Perla and Carolina equally,
Mhm.
but it's just like so exciting to get to interact with somebody who I have that language barrier with and still communicate, because that's
Yeah.
like the entire point of our major. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this is so
Yeah.
cool! Like, I see it working.
Yeah.
But
Wait, are you all LLC?
yes,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
you
we're
guys too?
yes, we're all LLC.
okay.
Yeah. And so it was just so exciting to just
Yeah.
be able to do
Yeah.
that, and it's so funny because before I knew, I was like, I'm going to be a general ed teacher. I don't really, I mean, as I'm so excited to get this ELL endorsement to be able to further communicate with my students, but now I'm rethinking and I'm like, maybe I really do want to be an ELL specialist.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what I really want to do, because I'm loving it. So
Yeah. You did
I am
a really
too.
good job.
thank
That
you.
was good.
Hi.
And then your lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that book
I
that you
love
gave
it
me
too,
too. It's
yeah.
called Emmanuel's Dream. It was such a sweet book, and it was really cool to see. What I did was a Venn diagram, and we learned to compare and contrast the book, our wordless book, to this book, and like what are their dreams and aspirations. And so we did that, and then I asked them to choose one of the characters or one of the books, and then I know I'm getting texts from you where you're sitting me.
Just now.
Oh,
It's weird. Your
I think
phone.
I didn't have service.
Anyway, sorry. I was just getting texts from Lorena, and she's sitting right here. It's just bizarre. Anyway, and then I asked them to do a compare and contrast of themselves and one of the characters, whichever one they chose. I think everyone chose Here I Am, though. Is that right?
Yeah,
I think
did.
they all did.
Yeah.
They really connected that book.
Okay,
But
yeah.
it was a good opportunity for them to take a wordless book and a book with words
Yeah.
and kind of combine those
They
two.
made connections that were amazing.
Very
Like, yeah,
interesting.
and even detailed to where I'm thinking more of like broader spectrum, and they're like, wait, what about this? And just very subtle details.
There was, I think Carolina was the one that was like, said something like, he's lonely and I'm not lonely. Like something like there was some sort of comparison with that, and
emotional.
yeah, there was lots of emotions despite the fact that Pepper, she's just staring. It's my cat. Well, she yawned at me, and I was like, okay. But yeah, it was. I enjoyed this week mostly because it was lessons that we got to do, and I felt like it was a less formal lesson than normal. I mean, it was still a lesson, but it was more so in a way that we had the ability to get to know our students rather than not so much we don't care to get to know you in our other lessons, but it's more so like this is what we're doing, strategies we're doing to both teach you as well as get to know you. And with our TPR lessons and our wordless books, you couldn't do that as much.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting week.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys thought about this week?
Oh, yeah. We need to
we'll
do that after.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I guess we'll do that after.
We'll talk about that later. You don't need to be a part of that. So do we want to talk about the elephant in the room?
Oh, what is that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Change in instructor.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. We didn't talk about last time, but I feel like it's important to talk about this
After
time.
having like a full 3-hour class and kind of comparing the differences, I think it's good to talk about it now that we have more of an understanding about how the rest of the quarter is going to go. But
just like change day to night.
Yeah.
Like
It was.
Yeah.
complete opposite, and the whole 3 hours were so useful, so beneficial. Instead
Yeah.
of like, I felt like especially towards the end of the class,
Yeah.
they were always wasted. Like,
Mhm.
okay, now talk to your group, and we would spend like an hour and a half doing that.
Yeah.
talking to our group, and it was just kind of Additionally, I mean, I've had Jen Green before, and you've had Jen Green before, but you haven't.
Mhm.
But I feel so listened to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like in the beginning of class on Wednesday, what she did is she had us write down what we've learned and what we need more of. Like she was like, go be together in your group, talk about what you've learned and that you don't need anything on, what you need more of, and what do you feel like was just entirely missed. And being able to do that, and then it was so funny because even in class we were like, one of the things we said, what we've learned is the ELPs. We're like, we're fine, we don't need that. And then she goes over in class, we're like,
oh,
we didn't know any of
we
that.
really don't know.
Super helpful. Like,
Yeah.
So helpful.
connected to-
And I'm also really excited to have both Tuan and Jen. Like, I think that's really exciting that they're able to co-teach, and like the way that they've created the final or our final assignment is very similar to what we have to do with the I'm never gonna pronounce it right. Solom.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that, where
Yeah.
we're transcribing, and I think learning to do that transcribing and assessing based on that transcription
Right.
is really beneficial.
Totally.
So I love that we're doing
Yeah.
that.
I was speaking with one of my science professors for my practicum, and I was like, and then I had this idea of doing this GLAD strategy with the class and developing a procedure and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, what's a GLAD strategy? And I'm like, let me teach you.
Let me tell you.
Well, it was just
I
crazy that like those strategies aren't being taken advantage of, and that's something we really focused on this week was specific strategies to reaching those students, and then having to describe it to her was like, why do other people not know this?
We all
Like,
have to know about
and
this.
so it's so valuable when we do spend time actually doing them and interacting with them as students, so we can see kind of from the student perspective on how it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah.
And then translating that cross-curricularly to science.
Yes.
It
Oh my
was
gosh,
cool.
I could see it work so
Yeah,
well for
totally.
science.
Yeah.
So it was cool to kind of have that information, speaking about it like days before.
Yes. I am just so thankful that the university just kind of listened to what we had to say.
It says a lot about Woodring, you know.
It does, and we really appreciate the fact that we were listened to, and we knew that something wasn't right, and we fought for our education, and not necessarily that we won in a way, but we are going back to benefiting from our education.
Well, and we saw, like you said, we saw a problem, we saw a solution, and we made sure that we received kind of what was deserving in our eyes. And I think that fighting, I don't want to say fighting because that sounds really strong, but standing firm in what you believe and being an advocate for your own education and other people's education is a true mark of like a good teacher. And I think that says a lot towards how important education is to us, and how that's going to translate to our students.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I feel like there were some girls, us included, in the class that like the whole time felt really unhappy.
Yeah.
But I also feel like with those situations, for some people, it's hard. It's like more like a gray area where they're like, maybe I could make this work.
Well, and it's one of those things where it's like it's not high school anymore. We are choosing to further our education, and therefore it's really important for us to be able to, at least some of us, to be able to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, like, because we're past that point in high school where we're like, we just have to deal with this teacher.
Right.
It is very much so like we need to make sure something changes, and so I'm excited.
Yeah, and it makes me excited to learn.
Yes.
And to go back to class.
Yes.
Like
Wednesday.
Wednesday comes around and I'm excited.
So excited. And Jen Green, like, I've never had her in this capacity before. Like, the last time I had class with her, and you too.
Mhm.
It was a linguistics class, so we were learning very much so about how language is produced and how sounds are
Right.
produced and everything like that, and grammar and all of this. And this is the first time I've seen her in this kind of capacity where she's teaching us about teaching.
Yeah.
And I've never seen her quite like that before. I mean, she would give us little tidbits here and there,
Yeah.
but this time it's really exciting, and I've never seen her do GLAD strategies before, and it's just, it's really cool, and I understand why she's a very well-respected professor.
Totally. Yeah. For sure.
Anyway, do you want to move on to family engagement is what I have next that we wanted to talk about.
I am excited about it. You guys kind of shared what you were going to do a little bit, but I wanted to do something about getting families of ELL students as a community together. Mm-hmm. And I wanted them to, I'm making my own, by the way.
I think all of us are doing option 2. Or making our own.
And I'm excited that the potential of actually it happening in the future is a real thing, a real possibility. Yeah. But I really want, in my engagement activity, for people to come and feel like they're a part of a community of people who are experiencing the same things that they are. Mm-hmm. And I was really drawn to us learning about the separation between kids and parents and how they come home and don't even engage in their family culture. Exactly. And so I really want it to be focused on like family growth activities and they're like integrating how families and kids can become one rather than 2 separate cultures trying to fight for their own.
Absolutely.
And that can be done in really subtle ways, like games or activities, but also just sharing stories with food and just community. Yeah. And I think that gap is so important to make sure that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Especially the support of the education of our students when they come home. Even educating parents who don't even speak English, how can they help their student do homework? Or how can they engage? Or how can students be receptive to their parents? So that's kind of what I'm doing mine about. But I'm a little bit iffy about details. So for option 2, I know that we have a PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. We present it in class on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Just to a small group.
Okay. But is there like a write-up that we'll have to do?
Yes. There's somewhat of a write-up of like a reflection of how does this work? Like why does this work?
Okay. Oh, were those the questions?
Yeah, those questions on the second part of the assignment.
Oh, I thought you had to incorporate those questions in the PowerPoint.
Oh, maybe you do. I'll just reread it later. We'll reread it later.
Okay.
But I'm also doing option 2, mostly because I couldn't find any engagement, and like I looked all over the place, and I really wanted to go to one at Birchwood because that's where my internship's going to be next year. So I decided to base my engagement that I've created off of Books and Breakfast, which is what we did at the elementary school I used to work with. Every third Thursday of the month we would do this Books and Breakfast, and I kind of explained it to them a little bit, but it was a breakfast that parents and families would bring in some kind of breakfast, which first of all, I think that's a great way to see like what do other cultures eat. Like this is just a simple way of seeing how do these people start their day. Because I mean, I know that Casey's family, who is from a Mexican background, they start their days usually with some sort of tortilla form. Like one of my favorite ones is they'll do bacon, eggs, and cheese just in a tortilla, and that's like it, and it is so good. But it's really delicious. And then they also do like potatoes and things like that in different ways, and so I thought that would be a good way to also get in touch with the cultural sides of the different families, being like, oh well, this is what you bring to your, like, this is what you guys have as a family breakfast. And so I thought that was a good start. And then what they also would do at the Books and Breakfast at the school that I worked at is they would read, the students themselves would do a reader's theater, and I'm basing this off of specifically the kindergarten classroom that I'll work with. So it would be great from the beginning of the year to the end of the year to see the progression in literacy for the students. So at the beginning of the year, they might do like Click Clack Moo, and all they're doing is Click Clack Moo, and I'm reading the rest of it. But towards the end of the year, maybe they're doing like a loud noise outside. Maybe it's a Father's Day one, and we're reading Hop on Pop, and they're all able to read a line from each of the reader's theater. And so I'm thinking it would would be a great chance for parents, especially parents of ELL students, to see how their students are progressing in learning that English language. And then the last aspect of the Books and Breakfast at Bridgeway, where I worked, was they would have a guest reader come in and read a book. So this is usually somebody from the community who would read a book, and I think this is a great opportunity to possibly get like the principal in, maybe a professor from Western could come in and read a book. I could also see, different people who are a part of different cultures in the community, maybe a parent who's doing something really influential in the community, or even just a parent. Like that could be really cool, especially if let's say I have a high majority, or not high majority, but like a large portion of my class is a Spanish-speaking ELL, and let's say I have one, Taiwanese ELL student, and I could have that parent read a book from their culture. Like I could see how cool that would be, just have everybody learn about that. So that was my idea, and I'm really just, it's based off of what I did at Bridgeway, but I'm really tweaking it to be specific for the classroom that I'm working in next quarter, because I could possibly do it if I presented to it, maybe. I'm thinking the only con that I see to mine, and what I'm trying to do and see how I could tweak it is a breakfast, so it is a morning, and that could be really hard for parents. We'll see. I'm thinking about other options for it, but I really like that idea.
It could be a
breakfast.
weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That could be fun too. Yeah.
Anyway.
Just thinking about that too, like there's so much that goes into food, not just like I don't know, just like you sharing.
It's so
that.
important.
Yeah, just like you sharing that, I'm thinking like in Mexican culture, I think it's common to have salty for breakfast and sweet for dinner.
Yes.
Like for dinner.
Oh, think about, oh my gosh, what's that delicious dish that's got chocolate in it?
Mole.
Mole.
Oh yeah.
That's got chocolate in it. Yeah.
Or
love mole.
Yeah, like that's just. I guess I never thought about it, but my family always has salty for breakfast and then sweet, like a sweet bread with like sugar on it and like hot chocolate for dinner.
Really?
Yeah, it's always like that. Or
when I went to Thailand, what they would often do is have soup for breakfast, and they'd crack an egg into it, and the egg would cook inside the soup, which was fascinating to me. I was like, I've never seen this before, but that was very common.
And food is such everyone needs it. Everyone enjoys it. And it's something that brings people together more than anything. I'm obsessed with this show. This is kind of a bunny trail. But Andrew Zimmerman's on Travel Channel, where he goes, it's Bizarre Foods or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes all over the world.
Anthony Bourdain?
No. Whoever his name is. And he goes to different cultures and meets people all over the world and tries the most bizarre things, but they're just a cultural norm.
Yeah, meals are so important. Think about also things like that. Just so important.
Or not just that, but like timing. Like we have dinner at 9.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
At 9 p.m. and like
wow, that's really late.
Yeah, and like lunch is like around 3 or 4.
Interesting. And siesta too, right?
Yeah, and that's like kind of when siesta is.
Yeah.
And in Mexico, like all the stores close.
Yeah.
And like that's another thing you could talk about is like what times do you guys normally eat? Yeah, and like and even think like why do people, which I'm curious about, like I don't know why, but like why do we eat at 9 p.m. and Americans eat at 6 or 7?
Yeah.
Because we don't have a siesta.
Yeah.
I personally do, but
I personally do.
Do you want to talk about your family engagement?
Yeah, I'm doing it influenced from Club de Lectura because I didn't have the chance to go this quarter, but it's kind of like an after-school program once a week for heritage language Spanish speakers. So Spanish was their first language or is the language their parents speak at home. And so when I went to Club de Lectura, and it's kind of how I want to do it still, like she always had some kind of activity where students would practice with Spanish words, and then she would break them off into their groups, and their groups were based off of Western students or Squalcom students, so Western and Squalcom students that spoke Spanish, because the whole club you're only speaking Spanish.
Oh, okay.
And so like an example lesson was like we did body parts, and now that I think about it, she totally did a GLAD strategy where she was like filling in this human body.
Oh, so
Yeah.
good. I love it.
And she gave kids the names of like ojos, hombros, and things like that. And as she was filling it in, she'd like say, what do you think this is? And then whoever had the card would go up and put it.
Okay.
And then after that, when we broke off into our groups with the mentors, we made monstruos, so monsters, and our monsters could be as crazy as we wanted. They could have like 8 eyes, if she had googly eyes, or they could have like 10 arms. But when you would present it, you would have to be like, mi monstruo tiene 8 ojos, and use that vocabulary.
Yeah.
I love that.
Cool.
And that's how most of her activities were, like something in a large group, and then break off.
So it was
But,
supporting their Spanish speaking?
Mhm.
Okay,
That's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
And like,
So you're gonna do it kind of tweaked to involve the families then.
yeah, that is what I want to add. And I was thinking like, I don't know if families would go every week.
I
Yeah.
think that's not necessary entirely,
Yeah.
but if you have
Like,
it
if
like
they
once a
did-
month they come.
Yeah, once a month, and like, I still haven't really thought too much about what they could do. Maybe they could just do the activities too, or
Maybe I could lead one too.
yeah, or also like I was thinking, I don't know if it would be separate though, but like instead of having it supporting kids, it would be supporting parents in English, but I don't know if that would be changing it too much. Yeah.
No, I think what if it was partially in English and partially in Spanish? Like what if it was working on both? I think that would be like if you could invite in both sets of students who both speak Spanish and speak English. Students who speak English are learning Spanish, and the students who speak Spanish are able to teach the kids how to speak Spanish, and then vice versa. It goes back and forth each week.
Yeah, I really like that actually.
Yeah.
Because Club de Lectura, they have it only Spanish speakers can come, and just having both languages being able to come would totally create community and would make Spanish speakers feel like, oh, they care about my language too.
And they want to learn how to speak Spanish. I remember wanting to learn how to speak Spanish when I was like in 4th grade and never having an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
I also think that kids are really excited about their differences.
Yeah.
I think when it's projected in a positive way, then you even hear adults. Oh well, I'm like half Native American. Oh, I'm half this, and it's like those. But you know what I mean? Like it's an exciting topic that people, especially kids,
absolutely
love to just engage in. I had in elementary school. I'll never forget it. It was what is it? Oh my goodness, I'm totally gonna forget it. It's a celebration in the South when it's Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras, yes.
So it was like Mardi Gras, and someone who was a parent, they were like a Cajun family, came and we did like Mardi Gras celebrations. And they have a tradition where you put babies, like little plastic babies, in cake. And
I know about this. It's like something leche, or I don't remember, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, so you put like little plastic
King's cake or something.
King's cake.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah. And you put like little babies or prizes or something, and whoever gets it like wins and gets the big prize. And I took a bite of the baby, and I was like, got it! And it was just, those things were so exciting. Or like my friend spent time in Japan and brought nori and sushi and wasabi and all these things that were unfamiliar to me as a 3rd grader. And it was like the talk of the town. It was so exciting,
Similarly, there's another culture that has something like that, that tradition. My ex-boyfriend's family, every Christmas and Thanksgiving, and they were Canadian, so they would celebrate Canadian Thanksgiving, but they were also Danish, like full. All of them were fully Danish, and they would have this dessert called risalamande. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I could be butchering it, but it was a rice pudding that they would put cherries in, and as well as like slivers of almonds, but they would put some whole almonds in there, and so like there were like 3 whole almonds. So if you got the whole almond, you had to hide it. and you couldn't
Where?
say
Like in the
you
house?
had it. No, you couldn't say you had it. So you would everybody.
So it was
so
like
they'll
in their
put it
mouth. Get it in your mouth.
You get it in your mouth, and
Oh.
you have to be like, and you don't have it. You gotta pretend you don't have it. And the reason you pretend you don't have it is because you want everybody else to keep eating.
So
it's kind of cruel.
Like,
Eat.
Find it.
And then whoever got the whole almond wins like a marzipan kind of candy.
Yeah.
So there are so, like, going back to the food thing, there are so many different things in different cultures and different ways to celebrate that culture just in the food.
Yeah. I remember one year, because my mom does the King's Cake too, and one year she ordered a King's Cake from the lady, and we were eating, and no one was getting any, and we're like, what the heck? And the lady had forgotten to put the
big.
And my mom was so
angry.
angry.
So hilarious.
Yeah, she was so mad. It was so funny because it was huge.
Those things are
You all ate it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's almost like that. It's almost like the Danish tradition.
Yeah,
But it's so cool because there's so many fun things like that. And especially, there is a family engagement thing that I actually wanted to ask you guys. So I'm just going to get to that right now. Specifically with holidays. So with my family engagement, I'm doing a books and breakfast, and each month is going to have a sort of theme. So I wasn't going to start until October because I feel like students are really settling in September, and it'd be just too hard.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start in October, and I was going to have, for October, I was going to do a Dia de los Muertos theme, and so we would all learn about the Day of the Dead and what's that mean in Spanish culture, and how is that celebrated, and then I would have somebody from the community come in and read a book on Dia de los Muertos, and so that was my plan. But then I was getting to December, and it's so tricky.
Yeah.
And so I guess maybe this can be a muddy question too. Let me do this as a muddy question.
Okay.
This can be a muddy question.
Yeah.
How do I teach students about different cultures during December?
Yeah.
When there's Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa, but there's so many others.
Totally.
Like, I feel I would love to do a books and breakfast on those three, but that's being exclusionary.
When is Ramadan?
And not just that, and just like how much like stereotypical things like parents want to see the Santa and something, and parents want to see the Christmas tree,
the menorah, and then yes, I know
they want to see all that.
Yes, and so it's tough because I think one great thing that I was thinking about when I was looking through it, I was like, if I did Christmas, but then again, that's just focusing on Christmas. But if I were to do a books and breakfast about Christmas, I could do it about how do different cultures celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
Because there are huge differences from like Australia to, even though that's not an ELL in any way, but like Japan has their own holidays, like ways of celebrating. So does Russia, but I don't want to be exclusionary because I will probably at some point not have an entirely not even Christian, I won't entirely have a class that just celebrates Christmas. I'm gonna have students who celebrate Kwanzaa, students who celebrate Kwanzaa, students who don't celebrate at all.
Yeah.
How do I get around that?
And also, I'm thinking about respecting the parents' wishes. Like, as a kid, my mom was so excited about Christmas and celebrating Christmas, and Santa Claus was like, she loved it.
Yes.
And so she wouldn't want a teacher or a student. I mean, I guess there's a dynamic where the beliefs of your family or, whatever belief they may be wants to be kind of encouraged in school as it's consistent with home.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I totally know what you mean. Like,
maybe
having them, you know what I mean? Like, that's
maybe I would do some sort of survey at the beginning of the year, like, what do you celebrate?
Right.
It's kind of like going into the interview questions, like, what do you celebrate? What are your holidays?
Yeah.
Do you celebrate Christmas? Do you celebrate Hanukkah? Do you celebrate a holiday that I don't know about that I'm going to need to do some research on and maybe find a children's book for it? Because how cool would it be if instead of reading a book on Christmas, I read a book on some sort of holiday that none of us knew about?
Yeah.
Like, I just...
not even from what your students are experiencing.
Yes.
It's something completely
different. Totally different. Like, we celebrate Christmas, but so-and-so here, he celebrates this holiday that I'm just learning about. Like, how cool. But it's such a December is such a tricky time of year
Yeah.
for
Teachers.
and families and.
Yeah, and there's one religion, I don't know what it is, but they don't celebrate birthdays and things like that.
It is Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah. And that's another thing to consider.
Yeah. I remember having
I didn't know that.
a dear friend in elementary school who would just leave during all of those.
Yeah.
He just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Because I remember we had a student that was Jehovah's Witness, and the mom didn't want him around, surrounded by Christmas stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want him to see any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really hard, especially.
Yeah.
But now I feel like schools are also getting away from holidays and holiday traditions. Like they're really I just found this out recently. Fun fact: did you guys know that no elementary school in Bellingham School District can just dress up for Halloween anymore?
Oh,
I
wow.
did not.
I didn't know that. I found this out in my science ed class because one of our practicums fell on Halloween, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to dress up. And the teacher was like, please don't. And I was like, why? And she's like, no one does. It's silly hat day now.
Oh, okay.
Because there were too many complaints.
Um,
So we're going more towards this all-inclusive sort of school vibe, and not that that's wrong in any way. It's important to be all-inclusive, but at the same time, I also think it's important for students to be able to both express themselves and express their backgrounds culturally.
It's kind of like what we've talked about, ignoring that somebody else is a different race than you. Having that blindness is not, it's ignorant.
Yeah.
Because yes, we are different. The same with celebrations or religions or holidays. It's like, yes, we do celebrate them differently, and just kind of Xing them out, in my opinion, is not going to sustain or fulfill that celebration and that cultural understanding.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a balance. It's difficult, and
it is difficult.
Just
It's
saying
one of those
no to
things.
holidays
it's
isn't
not
gonna.
well, and I don't think parents really
No,
necessarily
yeah.
want that either.
Yeah,
I think that parents definitely want us to celebrate. Like, my favorite holiday to celebrate when I was in elementary school, believe it or not,
was Valentine's
Valentine's Day. I loved it. It was so much fun. You got to make your little mailbox, and every year the teacher would have a creative way of making a mailbox, and you got to take home all these little cards and all your. It was just so much fun.
Still my favorite.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to be able to celebrate holidays with your students, and also show the holidays that your students may celebrate differently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a muddy question for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we want to go into interviews and interview questions?
Yeah.
Because none of us have done the Solom.
I should do this practicum.
Yeah, we're going to. I was actually considering going on when we're going on Wednesday to get hours in, the three of us, and we're going from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe we can ask the teacher if we can pull them out real quick and do like a 5
we can see.
to 7 minute interview.
Yeah.
But I don't want to risk not knowing and then wasting that time on Monday, So we'll have to find out.
I got an email from Beth. She said in the morning before school starts would be the best time to talk to her.
Oh,
What time does school start?
8:45 or 9.
Oh, perfect. We were going to go at 8 anyway. So we're meeting with the ELL specialist on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Which is so exciting.
Yeah.
She just seems like such
Is
a
that
joy.
Beth, the blonde lady?
Yeah.
Okay.
She dresses really, really cute.
Really
Yeah, so cute.
cute. So not part of her job, but whatever. She's
Because the other lady was
adorable.
the lady that was like taking Christy's kids.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. That was
really? Yeah,
That was her.
it wouldn't surprise me if our students would be with her, because I believe she is for the older students. So
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
But regardless, I'm really excited to talk to a legitimate ELL specialist in a school right now.
And even
currently.
not just about the kids, our students, but about her job and kind of what that's like. And kind of the challenges she faces, or the celebrations she gets to see these kids
It's
grow.
gonna be a really exciting day.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on site that day. That was necessary for listening.
It is exciting.
So excited.
Let's talk about interviews though, and that article.
Yes. I have
think it was
some
an
of the
article.
questions.
What questions did you guys write in your response?
When I was writing the response, I didn't see the actual questions for the kids until afterwards. So I added some of those in, of course, but I was just reading through the parent ones, and then I saw the Spanish, and I was like, oh, this must be where it ends, because I'm stupid. But then I saw the kids ones at the end. But one of the things that the adult one had that I was shocked that the students' ones didn't have was the aspirations and concerns.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think I'd necessarily ask my case study student, like, what are your concerns about your education? Because honestly, they probably have no idea.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think it would be so important to ask our students what their aspirations are, because because we're working with middle schoolers, they're at that time in their life where I guarantee you they're thinking about it.
Totally. Yeah.
And so, like I said, what are you most proud of? Was one of my questions I want to ask. What do you wish for yourself in the future? And then where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Yeah.
Because those are things that I think are really important to know. And if they say, I don't know, I think that tells a lot too.
Yeah.
If they say, I'm not sure, that's kind of like, okay, well, we have to show you more then to help you decide.
And the solemn was, in my opinion, very vocabulary. It was comprehension, vocabulary. It was things about language and there's language development. And I think you can structure questions so that you're getting to know them on a personal basis. That tells you a lot about who they are, but also the way in which they answer and their fluency or their understanding also tells you about their language development and their oral skills.
Absolutely.
So my questions were about, do you enjoy school? Why or why not? What are you really good at in school? What are you afraid to start when a teacher asks you to start it? Where are you hesitant? Because that says a lot about
it. That does.
Even for non-ELL students, if a teacher was to ask me to do long division, I'd be like, no, thank you.
No, thank you. I'm all good.
Yeah, or even just about their friends and their social groups and how they interact on the BICS level.
Yes, absolutely.
Wait.
Yeah, BICS.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember looking at that checklist that was given in the chapter.
Yeah.
I the CALPS checklist was so helpful. I was like, oh, these are things I didn't know.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna steal some of those questions, and I also have describing ones, to have them to see if we could have them talk for longer. Can you describe your hometown of Mexico?
Yeah.
Can you tell me something about your family?
Maybe describe a typical day at school. What do you do?
Yeah.
It would tell a lot if they say, well, I get here at 8:15 and then, or if they go, well, I go from math to science and then I go to homeroom and I see my friend and then I go to lunch and that tells you a lot from how descriptive they are.
Right.
Ooh, I like that.
I wrote, if I was new to this school, what are some things I would need to know? So that also shows their community engagement, their resources,
great.
Available resources that they access every day, their social interaction, just kind of overall.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. Or anecdotes, asking them, tell me about a time when, so that they have to elaborate.
Yes.
And I think that engages their language skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Those are really helpful. Totally.
That was really helpful. I appreciate that.
Makes the job less ambiguous. And having those checklists are very directional
helpful.
For me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Come on.
Any other interview questions? One of the interview questions I saw from the student section that I thought was interesting was, what language do you read best in?
Oh yeah. Reading and writing and speaking are different for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that our students probably have very little written language that they read in Spanish, and so I think they would have a much harder time reading in Spanish than they would in English. Specifically, I don't know about Alfonso, but I think Perla and Carolina, because they've been in the U.S. their entire lives, I think they would have an easier time reading in English than speaking English, which is interesting.
I have a question, and because she's my case study student for Carolina, she's an L2, right?
Yes.
But she's been here. She was in California and then she moved up. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, we can ask more detailed questions when we go on Wednesday. But do you think that that's because of her home, in her home, that her family just speaks Spanish?
And that's
Or
why she's an
maybe,
L2.
yeah, or maybe just, I mean, even kids
Maybe
who are
they're
ELL, yeah, or even kids who aren't ELL still struggle with language, and that's not to say it's just simply based on her language development. Like cognitively, children are challenged linguistically
Yeah,
early in
absolutely.
ways that are not just,
Especially with academic language.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
I think we're still a little bit iffy about the discrepancy between L1, L2, L3.
should that be a money question?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the difference between L1, L2, and L3?
Because
we know the term, like I'm working with an L3,
Yeah.
you're working with an L2, you're working with an L1. But the only difference that I can see that's big is like Alfonso between Perla and Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see much of a difference
No.
between Perla and Carolina.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, what's the difference between L1, L2, and L3?
Right. And where is it, like, language based, and where is it, that's a difficult question just to phrase. What I'm just saying is, like, whether they're ELL kids or not, some students are challenged with language anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so is this just based on their Spanish to English, like, translation or adaptation, or,
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like an English speaking student who lives in a home where they speak English can still have language development issues.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, like, the difference between that or, like, that
So-
could be prevalent in any student.
So you're saying, what's the difference between a true L3 at this point and a student who speaks English and just is having a hard time?
Yeah.
Is that
like,
basically,
when is
like-
it, like, based on the translation between English to Spanish or whatever language, or when is it language, like, struggle with language, not
Just in
considering
general.
the fact that it's their second
Yeah.
language, I guess.
Okay, how do I phrase that? When, good luck, Joy.
Sorry,
That's not very
When
correct.
is it based on their
because you know,
being in L1 or an English language learner?
Yeah.
And when is it just based on where they're at?
well, because we know, as we've learned, that the cognitive ability of a student is not based on their language, like ability to communicate with language. Bless you.
Thank you.
Is there a second
It's
one?
gonna be
No. When is
And
it based
we know
on their
that
being?
content, like a child can come from Mexico and know all the body parts, you know, but only speak Spanish, so they know it. But then sometimes,
Well, okay,
you know what I
I'm
mean?
ready. When I was growing up, one of the things I would say is I'm bringing, I bring. That's what I said.
yeah,
I didn't say brought. I would say I bring my coat.
right,
And so that was just me conjugating incorrectly.
yeah.
And so it's,
But
when
your
is
parents
it?
speak English, you
Yes.
grew up speaking English.
Yes, but I always said I bring my suitcase.
Right. But is it just because they're an English language learner that we identify it with L1 to L5, 4 or 5?
That's, or is it? Yes. Okay. I feel like I've got it. Is it just when they're in ELL, we base their language on
This,
L1 through 3?
this spectrum. Yeah.
Because I could also see students who are autistic who
Right.
struggle with that language. Could they be L1, L2? We really don't know the difference between
Yeah.
L1, L2, and L3. And
And
I
I
think
know
that's
that
the
it's based
baseline
on
that we're getting to.
Language and ELL learners specifically, but what is that difference, I guess?
That's a good question.
Mostly it's just about the levels, because I think that'll tell us a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
I
is
mean,
there
I
a
really,
test?
I wish, is there any piece of paper that you could give us, like a checklist?
There was.
I mean, there was a checklist on that assessment thing, but I just really don't know the difference between.
Yeah. We were
I feel like
supposed to
it's
cover
important.
it last class, but we didn't
Yeah.
get to it.
Well, my question. There we go.
What is it? I don't know. I always look at myself and not the camera, but I'll look at the camera. What is it? Does that seem intimidating? Okay. Moving on.
What's
Well, our next thing was talking about Wednesday. And it's going in on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, because there wasn't much this week in reading, and maybe that's because we got a
Well,
family
we can
engagement
talk
project
about-
to do.
We can talk about interviewing parents and stuff and what that looks like. Or setting up that.
This was kind of my personal muddy question, and I put it in my own thing. Were we supposed to talk to parents? Because I just thought of that. After reading that, I was like, oh my god, I didn't talk to any parents. Was I
don't
supposed
know,
to do
we
that?
were.
Okay, good.
No.
Because I didn't
No,
think
but-
we had the authority to.
But the article, I'm just referring to that.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
like what the appropriate steps are and
Yeah.
things to consider when talking to parents.
Yeah.
Well,
Right?
additionally I felt like the requirements in that section where it talked about the requirements for speaking to parents, I felt like it went also for students as well. You know, making sure they're in a comfortable environment, making sure that they understand why they're there, making sure it's free of distractions, it's during the time when they have time and they're not thinking about other things. It's also, what was the other thing? There's an interpreter there if there needs to be, you know. So,
Mostly comfort and understanding that these parents have concerns and love their kid, even if they're afraid to meet with you or there's so many different things that come into it.
I agree.
But yeah, I don't know.
Thinking back on my own childhood and when my parents would meet with teachers about me, it's like, I wonder, like, if I were to ask my parents, even though I'm not an English language learner, there were times where I would have issues and they would have to talk to my parents privately, and I wonder if they ever felt disrespected in any way.
Or even, this is another question for me, when is it appropriate to have the kid participate in the discussion, and when is it a better idea for them not to? And I think it matters based on content and what you're talking about. And you don't want the kids to feel kind of ostracized or set apart, but you also want them to be engaged in their education and knowing that people like us, we're working towards it together as a goal, you know?
So I wrote, when is it appropriate to have a student participate in a parent-teacher meeting?
Yeah.
When would it not? Because I feel like it should always be.
I know, me too,
Unless
but I
they're, like,
also
very
feel like
little.
maybe it's something where it's something about home specifically that needs to be addressed.
Right.
Oh, okay.
More on the social level or the relationship level.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I feel like there could be conversations that might not be.
Like, I'm concerned about this
Yeah.
with your child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't need to necessarily be a part of that.
Yeah.
Which might make them hyper aware or
Yeah.
concerned and have stress or anxiety that is put on them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't want my student to be stressed out, you know.
It's probably on a case-by-case basis,
Yeah.
but that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I remember when I had a practicum at Sunnyland Elementary. I was there during like conferences, and the teacher was telling us that now they had switched to student-led conferences.
Okay.
So like
That's really cool.
yeah, so like
I've heard of
students-
that.
Yeah, so students were like building their portfolio, and
Yeah.
for their conference they were to present to their parents their work and where they could improve.
Yeah.
or, like
I like that a lot.
self-reflective.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
I do. Because then it's a project that it's a goal that they're excited about. And I think kids naturally want to impress their parents.
Well, and
You know?
yeah, I would agree, and I would say like they love hearing when the teacher has something good to say.
Yeah.
about them. Oh my
I
gosh.
remember that. I was like,
I remember like when my parents got my report card, I wanted to be the first one to read it because I wanted to read just the good things. Where I was like, oh man, I know everything's
yeah.
Or thinking about even now, like when I receive a grade, I immediately go on Canvas and like, what did I get and why? Tell me I'm amazing.
Yeah.
Such a snot.
Or like screenshotting my grades to my parents.
Oh yeah, me too.
So are you gonna buy that thing for me? I'm just kidding.
What
that's-
brats we are.
Yeah, we're brats.
Do we want to talk about Wednesday now? Do we want to transition? We have 5 more minutes. You want to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in a separate classroom from the two of us.
Why?
Because Alphonse is in a different class.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like thinking
For our
like
lesson.
Monday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to teach by yourself.
Yeah.
We're just not going to be there.
He actually replied to me.
Oh,
he
good.
actually replied to me. And he's
Did-
like, yeah, that should work.
Oh, ours replied and said, was something like, yeah, tell me what students you have and I'll get you their schedule. So I told him the students we had. And then I never heard back after that. So
I'm sure the ELL
I think we'll be
specialist
fine and we'll just go, and I think
They're
it's
receptive
they're
to us.
both the teachers said that we can be there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna be there. I'm really excited to see them in a classroom setting
Me too.
when we're not in front of them.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious, personally, if they're gonna acknowledge us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
I wonder if they're either gonna ignore us, pretend we're not there, or if they're gonna be like, "Hi."
Yeah. Or,
Like I could see Perla doing that. I might not see Carolina doing that.
No.
I don't know. It's
That's
interesting.
Alfonso would
I
want
think
to ignore me.
I think Alfonso might ignore you.
Because he like.
He gets so
moved.
embarrassed. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Did you
You moved?
today? Yes.
What?
Not today. The other day when I was teaching, I was like, I'm gonna sit next to Alfonso because that's where I want to sit, and he moved the chair over after I sat down.
Yeah.
Oh
But
my
then he
goodness.
came. Then I went at I scooted back close to him. I was like, I'm gonna
God.
scoot one chair over, and then that's when
Okay.
we ended up having like the good conversation
Yeah.
about where he's from, and I actually was partially helping him with the definitions. I would like
Yeah.
write it down, and then I would like sneakily put my paper
Mind
close
you,
to him.
all three of them show up.
All three of them
So,
show up.
They
Oh,
like,
yeah.
they
They
come and they're
care.
excited and they care. So they're 7th graders. They're
And I can't
Yeah.
believe it because we went from having a group of 6
yeah.
or 7. 6.
Well, it's supposed to be 7, but day 1 was 6.
Yeah, so we went from having a group of 6 to having a group of 3. And I remember saying this at the beginning where we were like, I don't know if I want those students necessarily to come back. And while I'm a little bit sad that they never did come back because I feel like there could have been great opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
I am so happy with our students, and
Yeah.
especially with the other student teachers who are like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling so much
Yeah.
with this. Like, I don't know how, like, behavior management becomes primary to teaching.
Right.
Our students are so willing to participate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, in everything we do,
Uh-huh.
they're so willing to participate. They always do it to the best of their abilities. And for crying out loud, it's after school.
Yeah.
I know.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just want to keep them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just shows a lot about how, like, language, though it's a barrier, it's really not. And it's about loving them and connecting with them. And kids are kids, you know. So
Our students are awesome.
they're really great.
I love them.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else, really? No?
Nope.
We're going to see you on Tuesday.
Yay,
We're
I'm
going to see these
excited.
beautiful mugs sober on Tuesday. I mean, we're sober right now, but
Yeah.
we're not going to drink in your
We
class.
won't bring alcohol to
Sorry.
your class.
I'm sorry. Anyway.
Bye,
Bye, Joy!